Okay, so we started part 3 today. No enlightened retirement. And the first part of this section is really focused on the process being non-linear, or kind of not quite cyclical, but that you often go in between these different phases. So laying them out as the Satori, or the awakening, the initial awakening as a first step, a re-entry, so the entry into a sort of enlightened state, and then a re-entry, so you can attain it again. Then there's a point where people stop going out of it,
Yeah, I
and
really
then
liked that
finally.
on this page. I highlighted it, which was the mystics of every tradition teach that however powerful an awakening it will undoubtedly pass. And I was like, ah,
Mm-hmm.
true.
I guess that's like a good summary of the last section that we read. Like part 2 already has demonstrated this. And yes, that's only the beginning of the process, and that we're constantly kind of going in and out of this state of enlightened understanding, and then back into desire and greed and all of these traits that we want to free ourselves of. And on page, let me see, the first quote that I really highlighted. Oh, wait, I passed it already, didn't I? It was on this page. So having that structure and saying this map of the elders explains how it is possible that a person who has experienced an obvious and deep enlightenment can still be caught in greed, anger, and delusion. After stream entry, a person can give genuinely inspired teachings on realization and illumination, yet still not be living them. That is why further stages of awakening are essential. Even the big teachers are doing this. And maybe almost everyone is doing this, actually, he goes on to say later. And then talks about a period of, like, after reaching that height, that many people kind of fall into the depths of despair and get stuck in there for varying amounts of time. Uh, oh, yes. And then on page 116 here. Where did I. Where? This is my problem with using this instead of highlighting.
Yeah.
I wrote down the quotes, but then I have to find where they are. For the mature spirit. Oh, yes, it's here. I like this bit where he says, for the mature spirit, freedom is the journey itself. Rather than a destination or something that we can capture, it's just the
I
whole process.
I think
That's
that's a really. Oh, sorry, man.
oh no, go ahead. I'll
I
pick
was
up
just
here.
saying, I think it's a really good sentence because it encapsulates this idea that you see across all schools of practice. I think is the not over fixating on the goal,
Mm-hmm.
because then that in and of itself becomes this desire that you're grasping to. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If you, are you done, Tess?
that was pretty much my thought.
Yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah, I feel this is pretty much foreshadowing for the next chapter, where it's all about. Yeah, there are these cycles of freedom and despair, and basically, yeah, you cannot hold to these states of bliss, but you have to embrace all the shit as well. And once you're able to do that, taking the bliss and the crap as it arises, then you are maybe a little bit closer to, to freedom.
Yes. The letting go instead of the. Or maybe we stop pretending that it's a place that you can even get to begin with. There was that. I didn't actually note this one, but like that little anecdote he had, like a sort of Zen joke story about the disciple writing back about his progress and then finally being like, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm just living. And he's finally.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like that.
it's like that. Yeah,
And I kind of, yeah. I mean, all is good content, but under the two visions of awakening, I also liked the. Oh no, right before that one, actually. This block quote. I don't like this one very much. The difference between ideals and reality. And saying that ideals should inspire us to surpass ourselves, which we need to aspire to do if we are to be truly human, and which we can never actually do, exactly because we are truly human.
yeah.
That's all I really had on that chapter. Kind of quick, I felt.
I
Again,
enjoyed the quick sidestep into appreciating poetry for its ability to kind of push for an emotion that's hard to verbalize directly. Um, there's no specific thing we have to look at. I really liked that because I personally resonate very strongly with a lot of poetry. I think it shows in the things that I point out and highlight when I'm talking.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so I appreciated the author taking a moment to encapsulate that. And near the end, right before chapter 9, he says, leaving maps and expectations behind. In the end, we must turn our hearts in the direction of love and awareness, come what may. I thought that was a cute little sentence. It's that second to last paragraph on that page of
Yeah.
122.
I did like that bit about the poetry too, but I didn't feel that the examples given were really the strongest ones to
No, I liked
demonstrate
the
it, so
sentiment though.
yeah,
like I
same.
yeah.
I agree with the sentiment. Just pretty weak examples if we want to really demonstrate like how
Mhm.
much more meaning you can add into words when you arrange them in a particular way. But it's okay. We've had a lot of other, I think, nicer little poems here and there. So yeah, and then in chapter 9, No Enlightened Retirement, which the part is named after. This was really the kind of everything changes and also everything comes back bit, saying starting it with a story of the Buddha and struggling, well, being visited by Mara many times, but not falling, like not being susceptible to all that that represents, the desire and staying staying on the path without that. Um, Kind of using that as a backdrop for the experiences of all of the different practitioners that are mentioned here, and sort of keeping in mind the entire time that there are going to be transitions. So once you reach this high point, you're going to have to kind of slowly, and many people it takes many years to integrate that into their lives and really live in a way that reflects the understanding that they came to have. Because although we can see a truth, but not be the truth, right?
Yeah.
And kind of all the examples of everybody struggling with that. Actually, 25. Where? This part here. At the bottom of that page says, like the monk in the ox herding pictures, most of us have to re enter the marketplace to fulfill our realization. As we come down from the mountain, we may be shocked to find how easily our old habits wait for us, like comfortable and familiar clothes. Even if our transformation is great and we feel peaceful and unshakable, some part of our return will inevitably test us. We may become confused about what to do with our life, about how to live in our family or society. We may worry how our spiritual life can fit into our ordinary way of being, our ordinary work. We may want to run away to go back to the simplicity of the retreat. or the temple, but something important has pulled us back to the world, and the difficult transition is a part of it. I felt like that was a really, despite it being early in the chapter, it was a really good sum of what this chapter was really getting at.
Yes. On 126, I also appreciated that top of that one paragraph. It goes, all spiritual life is preparation for transition from one
Mm-hmm.
state to another, from one circumstance to another. The ability to make wise transition is the ability to keep a beginner's mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that's come up in other books we've read as well.
Hmm.
Oh, related to that, this block quote right at the end. What became clear is that spiritual practice is only what you're doing now. That's it.
Yeah, I mean that has also come up before that. Well, the now is really the only
Mm-hmm.
place where we are and where we can act. And yeah, as you said, everything else is either memory if it's in the past, or hope or anxiety if it's in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Ergo a fantasy.
Yes, then he has a whole section about people who fail to transition properly and fall into depressions or really have a struggle with, I mean, I guess in a way it's an attachment to that moment when they found bliss and
Yeah,
now they don't have it, so they struggle and struggle until finally they accept that they have to go through this and really learn.
yeah, that really brings back the idea that attachment is the cause of suffering. And yeah,
Actually, now I'm noticing this. In this story about the guy who was kind of rose too fast and then lost sight of it all and then fell, this bit where he says, this time I'm being more cautious watching who I spend time with. And he doesn't really go into that or talk too much in the rest of this page long block quote about that. But it reminded me of when we were reading, or yeah, well, the last book with from Thich Nhat Hanh, where talking about wholesome and unwholesome seeds, and that everything you're doing and everyone you're spending time with is watering certain seeds, right?
Hmm.
And I think this was a, like, he didn't really say, but suggesting like that same kind of thing. You have to be careful who you're spending the time with, because otherwise what happened to him, it's going to happen again. Then I had also highlighted on.
Oh man, tangent. So that just made me think of this article, the stupid article, it wasn't even written well, but I read it. About people complaining they can't afford their friends, and so I think about how people don't always mindfully consider the relationships they have, because the article boiled down to people being like, all my friends want to do expensive things and go shopping all the time, and I don't have that money, so I keep having to distance myself from them. And at that point, I feel like you haven't mindfully chosen your friendships. You haven't picked people who you have anything in common with if the only thing you know how to do together is spend money.
that seems to be the case. Yeah,
Well, maybe. Do you think people really have a mindset of choosing their friendships at all?
Sure, I mean, okay, maybe not. I'm a weird person. I choose my friendships.
I think we. No, you're right. We should do that. We should do that. But I don't think that that's a practice that most people engage in. And if you ask why they're friends with somebody, it's usually just like, oh, well, we went to school together, or, we were neighbors, or we worked together, or something like that. Like, just the proximity made them friends, but that's not really.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe the proximity allowed you to become friends where
Right,
you
but
might not
there's
have
some core
appreciated them the same way,
reason
but.
you stuck around.
And if
Yeah.
the only reason is just because it was convenient, right? And now it's not convenient because they want to do things that are too expensive. Well, then maybe it's kind of good that you are distancing yourself at that point, but
Yeah.
it's gonna just happen again if they don't. Or what's the quality of the friends that they will have if then their only goal is find somebody who spends less money? Not really the way it should go.
Yeah. Anyway, just something I was thinking about. Felt a little related. Maybe it's not.
No, I
My
think it is.
apologies.
It maybe not directly to like that section we were in, but I do think that it is related to like overall, right? Our discussions about mindfulness and intention and yeah, what others are doing that are coming into your own life.
Mhm.
It's much much easier. I mean, this is already difficult. As we can see all of these stories from all of these people, it is always difficult. And
Mhm.
it's much easier if you're surrounding yourself with other people who are at least have the thought to do the same thing,
Yeah.
have intentions to live compassionately and slow down. In many ways, it could be impossible to live like that person can't can't live the way that those people are living. Not even just whether they want to or not, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not getting us anywhere good. But no, I think that is relevant. Thank you for interjecting. The last thing I really had highlighted was in this quote from the Western Lama who came from a 7 years of silent retreat to teach, saying that life doesn't depend only on what you do. The big illusions we strive for, whether in the world or our spiritual life, turn out to be false. When you learn to let go, you find a tremendous faith in the ground of all things, that which is true before and after all our plans. Everything arises and passes. That is the true perfection.
Yeah.
I like the way of putting it. It's not really, I guess there's nothing new really happening in a lot of these. We've talked about all of this, but so many different examples. He continuing to do that. So many different examples of one thought or one truth, and just saying, well, this person said it, and this person said it, and here's somebody else's experience, and here's somebody else's experience, and just everywhere you look, the same.
Yes.
They're getting there. And just reminding us that when we fall, we should give ourselves to it and accept that that's what we're going through.
And
Mhm.
always have that old self compassion. Very important.
Yeah.
Yes. And the final chap under the chapter just that we cannot stay on the summit, but we can find peace and oneness with all things. For adjustment. And that is all I had today, actually. Felt very repetitive. I guess it's all just demonstrating the truth in what he's saying, but doesn't
Yeah.
give us a whole lot to talk about.
I feel that's basically what he has been doing, or at least from the chapters that I remember, that he basically says, okay, this is the point of the chapter, and here are examples of it,
Uh
so to
huh.
speak.
I think so far the book has been a really good one for reflection, while not necessarily one for new learning. if you
Mm-hmm.
have been in the practice or have followed a
Mm,
school of thought for a while. But I
yeah.
do think it's been a good one for sort of like, hey, stop and think about this. Like check in, think about these thoughts. What are you have you put this together mindfully, or are you following, the just just the flow of life without thinking kind of thing.
Yeah, I think this is also kind of the foundations. Like, if we look at even just the title, After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. We haven't
Hmm.
gotten to the laundry. I guess chapter 10 is apparently the laundry, so
The laundry finally.
so we'll get the laundry and
It's
then
like my
we'll
chore
see
list.
how you go back to doing that. But it took us, what is this, about 40% of the book just to have like the solid foundation. Like, okay, everyone's on the same page now.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
this happens, it happens in this way, and now what?
I think if we think about it that way too, though, it can be a reminder in our day-to-day conversations that we have to mindfully spend time building up a common ground with people if we want to have certain kinds of conversations with them.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what that conversation is. Sometimes you just got to spend time building up that foundation of understanding. That was my thinking. Sorry.
Yeah, on a personal level of self reflection regarding that, I have definitely had conversations with people where I knew that where my thought process was, or like how far developed on the understanding of an issue, was so far beyond where they were. It's like, okay, well, you just, and I always go in this mindset, well, if you only understood this, this, and this, then surely you would see, like, naturally this grows out of it, right?
Mhm.
So if I can establish that baseline and kind of, then we can go from there and lead to see what I'm seeing and what I'm talking about and why I'm saying these things. And there are a great many people who just don't have the patience to learn anything new or to actually think. I mean, well, maybe it's painful too sometimes, depending on the issue, but
Well, I know even just on a day-to-day level, and I think you've experienced this too, Lee, if you're just in a place of exhaustion, fatigue, you've been worn down, like your brain literally is like, no, no new incoming information. It ain't happening. Um, if I might have been presumptuous, but like I just know that if I've reached a certain point with my physical issues,
mm-hmm.
that can highly interfere my ability to be fully present and able to absorb new information in the moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. But I guess it's like different. Maybe it just manifests differently in different people. Like for myself, gaining new knowledge, it's like one of the last things that I'm still able to do. When I can't do all the other things, my mind still is pretty strong in that way, and maybe it's just the way. Maybe I've been, you know, trained it over many years.
I love
But
that for you.
I there are, I mean, there are things I can't, it's really hard to learn a new software, for example.
Yeah.
If I want to learn Live 2D while I'm
Well, yeah, and I think that's a
feeling
good point.
ill,
There
it
are
doesn't
easier and
happen. But
harder things to absorb, right? Like
yeah,
I can passively absorb a documentary and it's full of new information, but if you're trying to make me like break apart an idea myself, probably not going to happen.
yeah. And it does. I guess it's also, for me, it happens more that if I'm at physical limits where it's getting really pressed, then normally the areas that start to break down come less on, like, I guess less on like that type of thought process and more just, yeah, being less mindful in general. I mean, if I'm thinking to pay attention to this thing and hear what somebody's saying and learn new information, I can still do that. But then if I'm trying to, I don't, I guess if it's when I'm not when somebody's not giving me new information, or we're trying to like somebody's not doing things in a way. I guess my patience goes lower. Like it's not you're not doing things the way that you know you're supposed to do them. Why isn't it
Mhm.
being done this way? Then I have less patience for the missteps, I guess.
Mhm.
Even if I can still apply like brain power to certain kinds of conversation or understanding or something. And yeah, everybody has different areas of the brain. I guess there are different types of learning or attention that break down first, and it's not always the same.
Nope.
But yeah, it's worse when it's like perpetual burnout or like chronic
Mhm.
illnesses.
Yes.
Well, to say that if we do take the time to have a shared foundation and understand it, we can definitely go a lot farther than if we don't. But I am coming from where we come from to reading this book. I'm like, okay, I got some benefit from reading those first 9 chapters, but I don't feel like I got 9 chapters of benefit because we've been thinking about and talking about these things for so much time. I'm ready. I'm ready for the next bit.
Yeah. Give me the next thought, please. Thank you.
But yes, good. And the comments that some people have about like wanting to share it with their friends or that this really helped them is promising, I guess.
I think it's embracing that beginner's mind like we talk about a lot, and I think a lot of the teachers get into, and even in this chapters of if you can come in with that beginner's mind, I think a lot of text has the opportunity to really be transformative.
Mm. Or at least help us in the transition.
Yes.
That's all I have for today.
Go team, we did it.
We did it.
Once again, yeah.
We're
We continue
enlightened.
to do it. I am sorry I was late.
It's fine.